Gentleness. Is the voice in your head a gentle one? Hmm. Hi, my name is Susie Porter, and I help women rewrite their lives so that they can create their happily ever after, a gentle happily ever after. Today, I want to talk about gentleness and especially how it relates to the thoughts that we think, the voice or voices, for those of us who have lots of voices in our head. What is the voice in our head? Where does it come from? The voices in our head. It starts probably from in utero, right? We can't maybe understand, but the voices, our parents, the energy, the feelings. From the time we're born, we hear our parents. And then as we go off to school, we hear our teachers. And then as we become more and more aware of the world, we hear the voices of our culture, TV, movies, film, news, social media now for our children, all of it. And I'm going to go out there and say that I think most of what those voices say are not gentle. As a matter of fact, sometimes the voice is downright cruel. Uh, that is what I've come to believe because I've been working for decades to correct that voice, right? The voice screams, "You're not enough. You're too fat. You're too old. You're too poor. You're too smelly." As a matter of fact, pretty much everything about you needs to be upgraded. And that's how the system's set up, right? You will never, ever, ever be right. You'll never, ever be good enough. You will never be enough. You're always going to be a mess because if you felt whole and healthy and beautiful and young and strong and happy and fulfilled, you wouldn't buy anything. You'd be a terrible customer, right? You're looking for something? No, don't need anything. I'm good. So the entire mission of our capitalistic society is to convince you that you're not good. In all honesty, I've studied marketing and business, and we, for months and months, talk about your pain points, your problems. Why? Because we have to convince you we're the answer. Pay for us, buy us. I'm not saying that marketing or buying things is wrong. Thank God my the things that have helped me, I found them through advertising and marketing. I'm not saying that that's intrinsically wrong. I'm just saying that the scales have overwhelmingly tipped to um, emphasize that we're wrong, right? That we're broken, that we're not enough. Our society has gone way too far and it survives on consumerism, right? Your kids mean more to this system, this capitalistic consumer system. They mean more, they're more valuable as a consumer than as a human being. I mean, if you disagree with this, by all means, put it in the comments. I'd love to discuss. Does this sound like radical or harsh? But is it true, right? The really terrible thing about this critical narrative and voice in our head is that it becomes the voice, it becomes our personal voice. It's internalized by our young kids from such an early age, and it grows more and more intense until some teenagers feel the only way out is to kill themselves. Suicide is the number one cause of death among 14 and 15-year-olds in the United States, according to the Center for Disease Control. And suicide among teens in general is the second leading cause of death. Did that register? Did that statistic shock you? It shocked me. You know, I watch, I'm not, I feel like a hypocrite talking about this because I do watch the news, the salacious, gossipy. I'm following things that are like, oh my God, how's this going to play out? What's going to happen? But what really triggers me is that while these 24/7 news media, all the things out there are arguing about these salacious, meaningless details about the personal gossipy trivia about politicians and political figures and famous people, our children are literally killing themselves or being murdered in school. And it's not even on the table. It's not even a political issue. Why? Why? Is the voice in our collective heads so cruel, so insecure, so driven by competition and power, so clueless that we can't even see beyond our own fear, our own judgments, our own pain to notice that we've created a world that is not safe for our children to live in? Are the voices in our head, which become the voices in the media, so selfish and immature that all we can focus on and all we are motivated and enthusiastic to focus on is how wrong our enemies are? What's the answer? What's the solution? How can we repair and rebuild a healthy functioning society? Where do we even begin? If we're to attempt to rebuild a healthy society, we have to begin with a healthy individual, a healthy us, right? We have to begin with ourself, always. You can't go out and change something from a wounded place. Um, I remember Marianne Williamson always used to tell the story of in the 60s, she was a big peace protester, and how she would get mad when people wouldn't sign her peace petition. And I remember Ram Dass talking about he would go to these peace rallies with tens of thousands of people, and everybody was so angry. And he would say, how are you guys going to go create and spread peace in the world when you're so pissed off? You yourselves are not at peace, right? That's why people make fun of the woke liberals, because they're some of the meanest bitches in the world. They're so self-righteous and cruel and judgmental. They'll cancel you if you accidentally say something, anything wrong, which all of us, especially me, sometimes I say wrong stuff. Don't cancel me, teach me, help me, for God's sake. Have a little compassion, a little grace, a little kindness, a little humanity. We've really lost our basic fundamental humanity. Humanity is meant to be gentle. I think being human and being gentle should be synonymous, right? And who would know, right? By the way that our media works, you would never think that humanity is gentle. You would think humanity is a bitch. So, okay, where do we begin? We begin with ourselves. And what does that mean? That means begin to notice the voices in your head, right? What stories are those voices telling? What ideas are like Velcro getting stuck in your mind, and your brain gets like a dog with a chew toy just gnawing on that idea? And does that make you feel angry and pissed off and scared and hurt? And the extremes of people, you know, attacking people and killing people. It starts with that one angry thought, that one crazy idea, right? So the answer is to become aware of the voices in our head, the stories, the ideas, the visions that the movie projector of our mind is displaying in our mind. How are you feeling throughout the day as these voices dictate your emotions, your moods, and the things that you do, and how you perceive everything and everyone around you? How do these voices make you feel about yourself, about your family, and about the world in general? Are these voices gentle? Gentleness is one of the most misunderstood and misperceived and misrepresented ideas on earth. In the Course in Miracles, Jesus says, this is what is meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. They will literally take it over because of their strength. Meekness means strength under control. When you see the meek kid in the movie, he's always the kid, getting beat up by the bully, but it's the opposite of that. It's more like in the 70s, there was that show, Kung Fu. And he was he could kick anyone's ass, but he was so meek, right? He was so or Jesus Christ, right? He let people crucify him when he could have. He had all the power of the universe, but he let himself. He surrendered. Maybe that's example doesn't work in the context of this, but he was crucified, and now thousands of people have worshipped him, millions of people. So meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control. And I want to bring this up because I think it's really significant. I learned in high school about Darwin's theory of evolution, the survival of the fittest, and that I haven't studied Darwin a lot, but I have read a little about him, and I think that our society has taken that idea, survival of the fittest, which actually doesn't mean survival of the strongest. It means survival of those who are the most adaptable, because that in a world that's constantly changing, if you can adapt, that is the ultimate strength, right? So I found this article by Rajvi Desai in this little online magazine called The Swaddle. Cute name. And it's called "We've Completely Misunderstood Survival of the Fittest, Evolutionary Biologists Say." And the quote is, "Our interpretation of the fittest is actually hurting how we order social institutions, including schools and workplaces. We value cutthroat competition as an essential tool, often the only tool for success. This has led to the instilling of a masculinity contest culture in science and in other fields, devaluing traits such as cooperation and friendliness in favor of a competition that is often alienated, affects non-male participants intensely, widening the gender gap in terms of opportunity and independence in society. At the end of the day, it is a human's ability to work together that got us this far. And it is continuous friendliness. Did you hear that? Friendliness and consideration, even to out groups, that will see us even farther. And I couldn't believe I read this in a scientific journal. Sympathy is the strongest instinct that humans have. University of California, Berkeley psychologist Dasher Keltner says, sympathy is the strongest instinct that humans have. Wow. Sympathy, empathy, kindness, cooperation. We're not even sympathetic to ourselves. And we have to start with ourselves. We're at a crossroads in human evolution. Everyone agrees, from the mystics to the scientists to the mothers to the astrologers. Every great teacher and deep thinker has either predicted this time or in this time is agreeing this is the time now. I've only been on this planet for 6 decades, but I've never seen anything like now. Have you? The time is now, and we as a species will either, as Eckhart Tolle wrote in his book, we will either evolve or die. We don't have the luxury of a few more centuries to figure things out. Our kids are literally killing themselves while we argue over the most banal and trivial aspects about politicians' personal lives, while the adults are fighting amongst themselves. Our babies, our children are starving for the love, gentleness, attention, and validation that they need to grow into healthy, functioning, independent adults. We are starving as well. We as individuals are starving. We are starving ourselves. We are starving our loved ones. And we're allowing the cruel and vicious voices in our heads to ruin our lives and to ruin our world, to pollute our culture with hatred and fear. What's the answer, and where do we begin? Take a breath and begin with you. Begin with your own mind, with your own heart, and let the voice in your head be a gentle one. For every harsh, cruel voice, calm and correct it as you would a child that you loved very much. Hold the thoughts in your mind in a swaddled blanket. You know how you swaddle a baby because it's kicking and screaming? And when you swaddle it, it calms down. I remember my son, he hated to be swaddled, but that's what he needed, right? Swaddle, swaddle those thoughts, even if they kick and scream, because you know what's best. Hold them there. Let them cry. Let them have a temper tantrum because you have to take charge and assure them that you are in charge and that you know what's best. And you will no longer tolerate their destruction. You're in charge now. You will gently and with great love instruct the voices in your head. And I wanted to close with in the Course of Miracles, there's a manual for teachers. And this is under the section that is the characteristics of God's teachers. And one of my favorite characteristics of the teachers of God is gentleness. I'm an HSP, a highly sensitive person, so I really, 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 really like gentleness. And I really, really, really do not like harsh, mean, cruel voices, right? Even if they're for my own good. No, thank you. Not down with that. I like a gentle teacher. That's what I'm in for, gentleness. And so Jesus says in this chapter, who would choose the weakness that must come from harm in place of the unfailing, all-encompassing, and limitless strength of gentleness? I love that. Limitless strength of gentleness, not brute force, gentleness. The might of God's teachers lies in their gentleness, where they have understood their evil thoughts came neither from God's Son nor from his Creator. No, that just goes against decades of church and religion and Bible college for me. Thus did they join their thoughts with him, who is their source. And so their will, which always was his own, there's another news flash, is free to be itself. So as we let go of the cruelty and the harsh voice and the fear and the insanity of this world, and this world is insane, no question about it, it's nuts, okay? Any world that values brute force over the life and the health of a young child is nuts. It's crazy. We need to love the thoughts in our mind. We need to allow for gentleness, meekness, kindness, empathy, sympathy, relationships, human kindness. We need to make room for that. We need to make room for that in our own thoughts and in our own feelings. I invite you today to notice, to appreciate, to nurture, and to practice gentleness. Our survival depends on it. When I was a kid, I had an album, Lily Tomlin, and she did this character called Edith Ann. And I feel like this video was very heavy. So Edith Ann would always say after one of her silly stories, and that's the truth. So folks, seems harsh, but you know what? It's the truth. We got to get our shit together. We have got to choose gentleness for our kids, for our planet, for ourselves. Take good care of yourself today.